Okay, so this is the second unit of the Computing 2 video tutorials on files. And as a reminder, this material is available as a Jupyter Notebook if you're a lead student, which you can download as a PDF or as a Jupyter Notebook from Minerva. So the focus of this video is going to be on reading tabulated data. So as a summary from Unit 1, in Unit 1 we were learning how to open and read data files and then process them to get the information out of the data file. And so we finished off by writing some code that looked a bit like this. So this was using with open to open the data file, and then we were using a for loop to iterate over the loop. We were using some of the flow control statements in a for loop to skip over comment files and to recognize where we had a file of column headers, and then reading the various lines in and converting them to floating point numbers and building up at the end of it a set of column headers and then separate variables for each column of data. And I said at the time that this is really quite a lot of work for what's a rather common and actually quite straightforward, simple task. So the purpose of this video unit is to look at some of the other ways we've got within Python to go and work with this sort of data. So in scientific programming tasks, dealing with tables of data saved onto disk is a really incredibly common task. So you might, for example, be having an instrument that's producing data and exporting it to disk. You might be having some kind of other program or simulation you're running that is generating data files and exporting it to disk. And then you want to come along and write some code which is going to go and process that in some way and maybe make some nice plots of it or make it into a report and that you can print out. And so the characteristics of the data we're looking for is that it's data that's organized into a regular grid of rows and columns, perhaps with a header row. And those rows and columns are separated with some kind of delimiter character that marks out this is the end of a column, and then something at the end of a line that says this is the end of the row. So for the first part of the next part of this unit, I'm going to introduce the CSV library module and show how that can be used. And as well as dealing with general tabulated data, it's particularly useful when you have data which is got different types, not just numbers, in different columns of data. And also where we've got a possibility that our delimiter character, the thing that separates out columns, might always sometimes appear in the values we're interested in reading. And so we're going to have some quote marks or something around that to say, ignore this comma or space or whatever it is we're using. So this is the sort of data that is produced by programs such as Excel, although actually in practice there's a kind of huge range of different subtle changes in the format, which generally you see it called dialects as ways in which you can quote data and separate the values out and so on. But the CSV module is a really powerful tool for dealing with a lot of these things. The later part of the unit, I'm going to introduce the numpy gen from txt function, and this is particularly useful when the data you've got is in fact just all numbers, because again, this is a very common thing we deal with in physics where actually our data file is just a big table of numbers, and in that case you might well not want to bother with CSV module, instead go straight to numpy and gen from txt. So that will be in the third part of this video.